Well, welcome. It's been a fantastic day and a half. Who's been enjoying themselves? Yeah. Biggest challenge is just not falling asleep in those lovely white chairs, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about integrated automation. Congratulations to Cliff and everybody here for managing to have a conference on AI and automation, intelligent automation for a day and a half. And I don't think we've talked about RPA like once. Anyway, that's been an achievement. So I'm going to talk a bit about the HFS OneOffice, how this unifies the digital business models. We've got this concept around the hyper-connected enterprise. And there was a lot of talk yesterday about 4 billion people being wired together on connected devices now throughout the world. So hyper-connected is where we're really shifting. And then we're going to get into some of the realities of integrated automation. We're going to give you some data from a study we did with Cliff's team and Emma and everybody at KPMG. We spoke to 590 major global organizations from Japan through to the UK, through to Asia, US obviously. So we'll share some data from that. We've presented some recently about where this is all shifting. A little bit about us. In 2012, we were approached by a lovely company. In fact, one of the guys is sitting right in front of me, Pat Geary from Blue Prism. They came to us with this concept of robotic automation, and they tried to convince us that this was going to be the next big thing that was going to disrupt the outsourcing industry. And I think at the time, Pat's company had, 6 employees, and we had 6 employees. And then we had a nice little get-together last year, celebrate 6 years of our anniversary, and I did a toast with Alistair, the CEO, and the quote was quite simply, "You guys are worth 2.5 billion. We're not." So but you know, it was a great paper. It got into all the big news outlets, Economist, Business Week, everything like that. And actually, Pat did a terrific job marketing the whole concept of robotic process automation to the world, and it's led to where we are today. So we felt we were in a pretty good position after about 7 years to announce it was time to maybe shift the conversation from RPA to more integrated automation platforms. We did use the unfortunate phrase, RPA is dead, but it encouraged 450,000 people to read the thing. But then the premise is absolutely spot on in terms of the conversation needs to shift from just fixing steady state legacy systems issues to something much more transformational to the business. So we've done a lucky gold star ourselves. So we were Horses for Sources. We then shifted the name of our company. Now it's Hyper-Connected Future State. So lucky gold star became Life's Good. We became Hyper-Connected Future State. But we look at the AAA, which Tracy was alluding to, AI, integrated automation, smart analytics, and how this enables global sourcing and talent, blockchain, and digital business models. So that's our whole way we look at the world from HFS, and KPMG has been a terrific partner of ours over the years as we've done a lot of joint research together. I hope that continues as well. So how does our leadership view digital? So we've got a bunch of folks from KPMG, a lot of KPMG clients here, a few analysts, but they're all from HFS, I think. So let's have a show of hands for how does your leadership view digital? Is it about investing in new IT? No one thinks it's that. Is it about creating new customer experiences? Yeah, a few people showing their hands there. Is it about creating new revenue streams, leveraging digital channels like mobile and interactive? Just a couple of people. Is it about aligning and harmonizing your business operations across all touch point systems and technologies? I think that's been the winner here. First time anyone's voted for that one. And does your organization not have a digital vision? Come on, someone own up. All right. So we spoke with 350 odd digital leaders late last year, and we basically quizzed them on digital. So 35% actually still view it as investing in your IT, but 2/3 of them actually are looking at customer-centric capabilities. So digital's about the new customer experiences. It is harmonizing operations with the front to back office, and it's about new revenue streams. So it's really much more about the business model and much less about how we just buy new kit and new technology to do things more effectively. And nothing can be truer when we look at AI and automation. We also asked them, if they've got the same top 2 competitors that they had 3 years ago. And this was quite disconcerting because 29% of businesses have already seen their top 2 competitors shift since 2016. And when they look out a couple more years, 37% see them shifting again. That's a hell of a fast turnover of how your competition is changing, how things are moving in the industry. But at the same time, there's a lot of complacency that is going on. We asked these digital leaders if they felt their industry, their business was ahead of the rest of their industry when it came to digital transformation. And you can see here that nearly all of them think they're doing fantastic. Now, I pulled out banking and insurance. They all think they're well ahead of the competition. Only a few think that they're lagging behind. So while people are seeing their competition change, they're also looking at the world in a fairly complacent way. They're thinking, we're doing just great. We figured it out. We know what we're doing. We're taking that next step forward. So here's some data that I think really starts to get to the heart of the matter. When we did an analytics study, we took the Global 2000 and we divided the data into those companies who are performing the highest in terms of profitability, revenue, and growth, and those who are performing the worst in terms of profitability and growth. And you can see here the leaders are much more focused on speed to market, improving customer experiences, than they are just improving operational efficiencies. When you look at the laggards, they're still obsessing around cost and process and efficiency, not around the customer experience and speed to market. It's becoming abundantly clear that the leaders in the market today have really shifted this conversation really from a cost play to much more of a growth and customer-centric play. And when we ran the automation study with KPMG, we asked them where they were really implementing intelligent automation tech. And right across the board, IT is the #1 business function where automation is being absorbed. I mean, I've spent some time with telecoms businesses, for example, and they do some really, really cool stuff that's very technical. And then the second big function is customer service. We're seeing increasing numbers of companies really start to figure out how to really automate and make much more intelligent their customer service function. So let's cue, I think, the first movie I wanted to play today, which talks about a company called OhmConnect, which is an energy business based in California. And I'd love you to see a little bit about how they've really embraced the customer experience to differentiate themselves.
Meet Adam. He's an environmentally conscious person who'd like to reduce his footprint. He could get solar panels, a thermostat from the future, and smart appliances, but who has the money for that? What if he could reduce his carbon footprint while making some money at the same time? Introducing OhmConnect, your home's energy management tool. OhmConnect is software that turns your home into a virtual power plant. You can actually sell your electricity consumption back to the grid. No solar panels or hardware is required. Here's how it works. First, OhmConnect notifies you when energy prices are spiking and dirty power plants are turning on. Second, you turn off a light or two. Third, you get paid for your reduction. OhmConnect also analyzes your home's energy consumption, shows you where your energy comes from, and tracks your energy improvements. Winner of the Department of Energy's American Energy Data Challenge. Join OhmConnect today at www.ohmconnect.com/signup.
Okay. Anyone using this yet? Yes, we have. Fantastic. But I mean, for example, if there's a big football game on in the afternoon and there's a ton of electricity being used to watch that, OhmConnect will send you a message to say, if you turn your TV off right now, we'll refund you $8 on your bill, something like that, right? And then you might not be that interested in the game. You're thinking, yeah, let's not watch it. Because what happens is if there's a surge in energy consumption, OhmConnect then has to go and use some of these legacy power plants, which rely on fossil fuels and other types of legacy technologies to create energy. So what you're doing is you're not just saving money on your bill, but you're also helping conserve energy from non-climate change friendly, carbon footprint savvy type energy businesses. So it incentivizes green behaviors. It's being adopted a lot by the governments. So the state of California is really widely adopting this. And it's very ethics and community driven. We've seen examples like Lemonade in the insurance business, which relies on giving back to philanthropic charitable causes for unpaid claims and these types of things. This is incentivizing you, hey, let's use this energy firm because they're not just saving us a little bit of money. The money might not be that significant, but at the same time, they're also getting incredible intelligence from your consumption and usage and really helping save the planet. This sort of takes us to, there we go. This really takes us to the OneOffice framework, and I think really does tie in so effectively to everything we've been talking about over the last couple of days, which is you look at the front office of the organization, how do you design your customer processes more effectively? When we talk about AI and we want to have business-minded leaders start to design processes in a way that can keep them ahead of the competition. There's no way you can really do this if you can't tie your whole customer experiences in with the middle to back office to really enable that. How do you start to then really incentivize your whole kind of nervous system of the organization, which we call the digital underbelly, to really support those impacts that are happening at the front end of the company? This is where you cloudify and secure your data. This is where you unify your data, for example. This is where you look at automation and these types of elements. And so how do you start to then wrap the needs of the customers around the needs of your people, which we call intelligent support? So for example, you might have very siloed finance, marketing, HR, IT departments, which are still looking at KPIs and metrics in their own little silos. How about having them think more broadly around the needs of the customers? How about having your finance people start to think about customer to cash instead of just invoice to cash? How do you start to think about procure to customer to pay and not just procurement to pay, for example? How do you start to take processes from the customer touch points in the organization and weave them back to the back office and really break down those silos? And how do you become more intelligent and predictive as a business? How do you start to think about anticipating the moves of your customers before they even might know them themselves? How do you start to look up and down your supply chains more effectively? How do you start to leverage some of the great potential of blockchain we've been hearing about in your organization as well, and IoT, and then where does machine learning fit? Start to look at the predictive digital areas of a company in a way that achieves your customer outcomes as opposed to just buying technology kit for the sake of it. So I think the core message I'd like to really get across today is that we've got to move beyond fixing these legacy issues and focus on driving our people to rewire business operations to really stay ahead of the market. That's the message that we really want to get across. That's where we think things have to shift. That's why we said RPA is dead. It's because it was very focused on fixing things that had happened and making them maybe work a bit more effectively, rather than thinking about how do we truly start to look at these processes, how do we break down silos between the front and the back office to actually rewire businesses in the way that they're supposed to be run. And we call this the hyper-connected state of the future. So when we hyper-connect an enterprise, let's look at the last 30 years, even longer, the history that we've come through from shared services and nearshoring to offshoring and taking advantage of lower cost location and talent, to analog outsourcing. A lot of that brought us together 10 years ago, and it's now emerging. And then we came across basic digital. This was when digital first came in. You remember the SMAC stack, and that was all about how do we respond to the needs of our customers as those needs happen? How do we become more real-time and faster with our businesses to where we are today, which is this OneOffice mindset, which is becoming more predictive, becoming more anticipatory, starting to really engage with our B2B networks, our supply chain networks, start to become more autonomous, to where we get to this hyper-connected phase in the future. When we look out and we can start to really look at things like quantum computing, what I call super intelligent digital workers, not maybe some of the robots we have today or chatbots we have today, the things that are much more impactful to the organization. How do we start to really evolve? And the answer is, we've got to stop doing things the same way, just a little bit faster, a little bit smarter, a little bit cheaper. RPA is great because it helps you move data around the organization a bit better, but it's not driving you to rewire your operations, to actually change the way that you operate so you can truly compete in a market where you're ahead of the competition. You can actually start to outthink and outlast your competition. As you saw earlier, a lot of these businesses, they think they've got it. They think they know their digital models. So how do you stay ahead of it? How do you keep ahead of it? How do you keep current? So let's look at another example of a slightly related area, but I think this plays into the hyper-connected mindset. So if we could run the next video.
Time as you know it is about to change forever. The world has erupted with billions of digital signals happening around you every day. The noise level is extreme. People spend so much time analyzing the billions of signals happening every second, yet true understanding must wait. You need to move beyond the delay and inconsistency of so-called real-time data analytics. You need to know what's happening as it happens, wherever it's happening.
Event confirmed, 2:04 p.m. Building fire.
You need to know now. Welcome to Lifetime. Lifetime means understanding all data brought together from every available source and combining it as it's generated into a crystal clear view of what's happening anywhere right now. Imagine you could have that kind of deep understanding for every location you care about with no delay. That when something happens that could affect your business, people, or communities, you know about it instantly. Imagine the possibilities if you knew minutes, even hours before the rest of the world. Know now with Banjo.
So here's an example of a company which is completely designed around mining social media, looking at mobile phone activity across 12 different major social networks across the world, right from obviously your Twitters and your Instagrams to Russia's vKontakte, China's Weibo, for example. It's a virtual global grid which is actually based on 35 billion individual football pitch type squares across the world. And this was developed over the last few years in a way that it can literally respond to alerts and changes and earthquakes and things like that as and when they occur. And it's now being used by many sort of businesses as well. We spoke with a major confectionery business which is using this to anticipate what's going on with consumer demand. We're seeing companies like Budweiser use it. We're seeing other sort of developments in terms like Amazon. But its first major use was in media. I mean, you remember the 2014 Florida State shooting in Tallahassee, and this was the term "scared shitless" was picked up on someone's Twitter feed, which alerted CBS Media to the news for the very first time, and they were first at the scene. And now all the major media use this Banjo application to be able to monitor what is going on around the world and detect little changes as and when they occur. And just think of the business potential as something like this evolves in terms of having that global access, that ability to really monitor behavior as 4 billion people are connected on these devices. So let's get into the industry. I wanted to give you some facts. We'll bring us down to earth a bit after some great esoteric conversation. Investment intentions. Our state of industry study really showed by the end of last year, in 2019, Global 2000 operations leaders, 50% plus of them right across industries are looking to make significant investments in RPA to drive out cost in their business. A much lower proportion, between 10 to 20%, are looking at significant investments in outsourcing. So we're looking at this real situation now where if you look at outsourcing engagements, they're much more looking at people, bots, technology capabilities, combined into much more sort of different types of models that are really shifting the industry. The other thing that's interesting is the whole fabric of the industry is changing, and we've been doing this study for so long. We've taken the data from 2014, 2016, and 2018 studies that we did with KPMG to look at aggressive interest in offshore, and you can see in the blue bars back in 2014, companies were looking at aggressively moving 20% of finance, nearly 30% of IT offshore. That was decreasing in 2016. Today in 2018, it's suddenly negligible. And is this because the industry is shrinking? Absolutely not. The global outsourcing market is growing at 4% CAGR through to 2023. It's still growing at a fairly healthy clip. Okay, it's not the 10 to 15% growth we were seeing 10 years ago, but it's still growing, it's still healthy, and a lot of that is driven by offshoring. We just don't think about it anymore. Do you think about your electricity generators when you buy a power package? You don't. People don't think so much about people, they're not thinking about location. I don't hear about these conversations about anti-offshoring going on as an election issue anymore. Things have really shifted very, very quickly in just the last couple of years. And so I think there's a shift in how these services are now being perceived by clients. And this is a great topic as we look at how clients get the help they need in the future. I mean, the skills and the capabilities are getting increasingly difficult to acquire and to partner. And when we look at the highest performers within the Global 2000, 57% now view their primary service provider relationship as someone who can co-innovate and co-create and define measured business outcomes with them, versus only 43% of low performers. And so you look at all the different types of firms now operating in the services sector. You've got your transformational consultants, many of them are here today. We have IT services companies, we have software companies, we have several of those here as well. You've got your middle to back office BPO businesses, your front office call centers, and your data science and analytics vendors. That is the industry. But when you're a client and you need help, do you want to buy the way that these companies are structured or selling? Would you call your call center firm up because you want analytics? Possibly not. So if you're selling these services, you've got to think about how does your customer want to buy moving forward? How do they perceive you? They want solutions, they want people to understand their problems, and they're caring less and less about how many sensors you have here, how many staff you have over there, how many bots you can pull from this particular provider. The whole concept of services is shifting to a buying concept. Because money is being put into intelligent automation, our study shows that 30% of companies are investing over 50 million a year now in intelligent automation tech. This is big business, this is big investment, it's on the table. But let's finish up with some hard realities. We saw a lovely acquisition of Symphony Sykes at the end of last year for $70 million for a company which is barely 4 years old. We see some of these lovely startups talking about big software investments. A company, UiPath, famously declared that they were worth $7 billion, and they even got their investor to back them up on it. And they even leaked this stuff to the press when they had an opportunity to help hypermarket up. But let's get to the reality. One of the reasons we wanted to say, look, let's stop talking about RPA, is that the terminology was just incorrect. Most of this stuff is not process automation. 85% of these deals are actually attended automation. They're not the unattended back office, which was the original premise that Blue Prism and these guys came to market with. And also 80% of these deals, they're not process focused. They're screen scrapes, they're document management tools, they're activity connectors, they're API connectors and all sorts of things. It's not process automation. So let's shift the terminology. Let's start talking about something that's much more effective. We talk a bit about integrated automation platforms. We look at a market in sort of 4 different spheres that are attacking the market. So you've got your systems integrators. We included KPMG in there, for example, with their Ignite platform. You've got your Accenture, Synops, TCS, Unio. You've got your sort of RPA companies who we're calling robotic transformational software products, which we think is generous because they're robotic software products which could be transformational if applied in the right way. Then you have your sort of big iron ERP vendors. You've got your Salesforce, your SAP, these types of companies trying to build out their own automation capabilities. And then we've got a whole bunch of these really interesting AI and analytics products. Keep meeting them every day. Some more examples, Cognitive Scale. Celonis is another company which we're quite interested in terms of its process mining capabilities and these types of things. But the whole idea is it's about how do you build a capability to integrate the tools you need to get to the outcomes you want. Is it buying a platform and then maybe having lots of different tools and capabilities from other parties? How do you pull this in? The winners are going to be those who can truly build that integrated automation experience. The second reality is why are companies buying intelligent automation? So we asked them, what are your strategic objectives? Drive revenue growth. Drive revenue growth. What is your operational objective? It's much more about service delivery, effectiveness, and service quality. Only 1% are actually looking at an FTE reduction when they invest in intelligent automation. And that's the big shift, I think, that's happened in the last 3-4 years. People aren't looking so much at how much immediate cost takeout there is to where is the value. And I love the expression I keep hearing, which is giving back hours to the business, which is what I'm continually hearing from many enterprise clients as they have these conversations. How many hours did you get back to the business by doing that? Now, what do we do with those hours is a different question, but the mentality shifted. In terms of impact on changes in roles, we took the data across the 590 businesses just to sort of show you, in the green, it's companies who are expecting more than 50% job impact from automation. The orange is 20%, and the blue is like a minor impact. Japan, which I think is one of the most exciting regions for automation, their DNA is centered around automation, and they have real issues with karoshi and work type and resource. They see a lot of impact from automation, but they see it in terms of job roles as fairly modest, like 20 to 30%. The US and the UK are looking at it more aggressively. So you can see here businesses are thinking that this is going to impact at least 20 to 50% of their jobs. So this will have an impact. And when we ran a very private poll of 200 enterprises last year at our HFS forum, and this is private, so people could do an anonymous response, we said, what is your talent strategy for your staff who are impacted by automation? And 40% literally said, we don't know. They actually don't have a clue. So we're getting all these hours back to the business without a real clue about where we take this next, right? Okay, so we freed up all this time. What is time? How do we value that time? How do we move it into the next dimension? So I think the real issue here is scale. And we looked at all the different 8 elements of intelligent automation, right from computer vision, ML, through to RPA. And I made some examples here of 13% of businesses believe they've developed some sort of scale and industrialization with their RPA capabilities, and not a lot more in other areas. Most companies are still piloting, or they're moving to production. So we're still in a very early phase of why aren't companies scaling? And my argument is it's not because of the tech, it's because of the people. Most companies, you see, are just tinkering. 40% have moved barely beyond pilots, and you can look across the industries. Insurance, for example, a lot of them are piloting this, 47%, but only 17% have moved into production, and even less when we look at governments and some of these industries. And we'll have these slides available if you want to take a deeper dive on this later on. So we ran a study to really get to the bottom of this, and we divided the findings between the IT leaders in the C-suite and the business leaders in the C-suite. And we asked them, what is stopping you achieving a digital OneOffice mindset and outcome within your organization? And in the business C-suite, they complain about a lack of digital mindset within the business, a lack of mindset from IT, but they don't see it as a resource issue. The IT executives agree, yeah, we have a digital mindset issue from business and IT, but we also have a massive talent issue. So the IT people are saying, we've got 45% of us don't have the talent to slam this software in, to design it, to develop it, to run it for you. That's pretty good news if you're a services company out there. You've got a lot of clients who've figured out they need to change. The business people know they have to change, but they think they can do it with their current staff. The IT people know they've got to change, but actually don't think they can do it with a lot of their current staff. So there's a little bit of tension building in the organization. And I took some data to finish up with from the World Economic Forum survey. They speak with 100 leading companies within each industry. And we asked them, what are your barriers to change in industries overall? And it's this insufficient understanding of disruption. Companies generally feel that they don't really understand what is happening down the road, what is truly going to disrupt them. They obviously talk about resource constraints. People always blame money as the reason we can't change. But then 37% actually said their workforce strategy is not aligned to their innovation strategy. That's over a third of businesses failing to take their teams and align them with what they need moving forward. That's a hell of a lot of companies out there, and those are the ones who admit it, right? And what are these skills we need? We can go through these piece by piece, but it's having people who are creative, can think laterally or orthogonally, they understand systems and outcomes, and they're great at self-evaluation. The actual capabilities and attributes that companies know they need are shifting much more to this creative capability, this problem-solving capability, and this system skills capability. And as we look at the advances in low-code, no-code software, no one has the right not to keep updating their skills. I mean, would you use a tax accountant if they weren't up to date on the latest tax regulations? Would you go to a dentist if they were still using 20-year-old X-rays to look at your teeth? Absolutely not. So what gives us rights as business professionals and IT professionals not to understand what is happening in this technology world, getting ahead of it and applying it to our business? Because it's not all about going back to college and learning new things. It's about taking attributes that don't require a lot of talent, like just being passionate, being coachable, doing extra, being able to look at yourself and have a better attitude. It takes me to the final reality, which is we've got to get out of these silos. The majority of intelligent automation projects today are looking at things in a very piecemealed, one technology at a time way. They're not bringing together the technologies, they're not integrating them. Only 11% are looking right across the gamut and combining their capabilities. And this is where the whole COE discussion really comes into play, is how are we managing and governing this moving forwards? How are we scaling this? We talked about not having enough people in the organization to help roll this out more effectively. So we asked these people, what is holding you back in terms of intelligent automation success? And it's not to do, look at the bottom, it's nothing to do with lack of technology, the current provider isn't doing the job. It's actually, they need more scale. They are uncertain about the financial investments. They have lack of organizational clarity and accountability, and they're concerned about changes in governance and risk. Those are the things that are preventing change. It's not the toolkits and the pieces of tech. That's all here. We've seen for the last day and a half some of the wonderful things this can do. And the best automation successes, when we look at those success rates from companies in the high performers and the low performers, the best performers are the ones who are scaling much, much faster. You can see, quite dramatically that 2/3 of them are doing much better at getting up to speed. So how do we achieve this hyper-connected state? Cost reduction, I think we're all agreed at this point, is not the strategy. We can't keep kicking this intelligent automation can down the road. It's here, it's now, it needs to be dealt with. People need to be prepared to change. They need to have that insecure, innovative obsession with constantly bettering themselves. We need to keep training ourselves. I mean, someone said to me, I think we mentioned it yesterday on the panel, I used to work in a manufacturing company where when the new machines came in, there was a fight between who got to get trained on them first. Right? Why don't we get to that type of, here's some new technology we're looking at, who's going to kick the tires on this thing first? Who's going to figure out what we can do with this? How do we build co-innovative relationships? Because those relationships that got us to where we are today might not be the ones that take us where we're going in the next 5 years. Do these partners have the skill sets? Do they have the understanding of our real needs to change with us? And, do we have the right balance between a business-led team and an IT-led team? Is there the synergies right between automation and AI, and are we integrating this right with senior executives who are really getting involved here? Because too many of these projects are pushed to lower middle managers in organizations. They're getting into silo projects. Why can't the senior managers and the leaders in the organization learn more about this stuff and get more really savvied up on where this is shifting? And I think I haven't heard it once in the last day and a half. So thank you for no one's talked about the future of work, because it's not the future, it's here, it's now. This is the future of work. When we're saying in 2 years' time we're going to be talking about going to the moon, right? We know the conversation's running out and we need to really act. So hopefully I've got a little bit of the state of the market across to you in terms of where we think things are shifting, or why the conversation needs to change, the narrative needs to change. Do we have time for questions, or am I out of time? Okay, I'll take questions over lunch. How's that? Thank you very much.